I was glad when they said unto me, let us go into the house of the Lord. My name is Hugh Craig. I'm canonically resident in the Diocese of North Carolina, but I'm licensed here in the Diocese of Texas. And I've been at St. James for 11 years now. And 6 years ago, I asked if I could be licensed in this diocese, and the priests here helped me do that. And I've been on the staff of the church since that time. I came to St. James initially because I'd been away from the church for 25 years. I was lost to the diocese. I was lost to the national church. In fact, when I looked up my name on the national church's registry, I was under the presiding bishop's list. He said it had written there, the Reverend Hugh Craig, whereabouts unknown. So I had to make my whereabouts known again, both to the national church, Diocese of North Carolina. And process of doing that, I visited with the dean of the seminary, who suggested I come to St. James. My first Sunday, I came over, and people were here, and everything. I was welcomed. One of the things about that welcoming for me that made St. James so special was the cookies. They were wrapped in cellophane and tied with a red bow. And the lady who gave them to me said, "This is for you. Hope you'll enjoy them, and here's a little package of information," and all that sort of thing. And I felt like at that point that I was home. I felt like, they don't know me, they don't know anything about me, and here I am at their doorstep, and such welcoming and such love I hadn't experienced in a long time. So I continued here and sat kind of way in the side, kind of hiding myself for a while. But I came every Sunday, and in about a year and a half of doing that, I began to get more and more involved with the church. St. James is an unusually friendly congregation, I think. I think practicing the radical hospitality that we try to practice here really works for people, particularly people who are coming who are in need of being healed. That was my need. I never left God, I never left Jesus, but I left the church. What I've found at St. James is a group of people, both African American and Anglo, and actually including now Hispanics, who are looking to be really great ambassadors for Jesus. They're looking to represent him in this world beyond the confines of this church. That's what we do, and that's why I think this place has a remarkable ministry. The other thing I think that causes St. James to be so remarkably different is the lessons that the founders left with us. There's only one founder left alive now, but I was fortunate enough to know 3 or 4 of them after I got here. Hortense Lawson I don't think she was a founder, but Hortense Lawson was a longtime member of the church. And what the African Americans left with us is a sense of family, the sense of belonging, the sense of home. Home, a safe place. Home, a place of love. That's not always that way for all people. But I think when we think of home, we think of safety, comfort, familiarity, family, all that sort of. That's what they were looking for, was that sort of thing, because they had been refused a home in the Episcopal Church in Austin, Texas. They couldn't find a place to worship here because they were different from other people. They were African Americans. They were black. And boy, you didn't want that kind of person, sitting beside you in your pew in those years. So they founded St. James 1941. Yes, 1941. And started a small group, and it built into what is now 300 or 400 communicants and members of the church. My fear is that as time goes by, people who didn't know some of the founders, who didn't know some of these people who were so committed to this church, will forget it. And I think the most important thing that we can do in our teaching here, particularly adult formation, is to emphasize what the founders gave us, what the building blocks they left for us as a foundation, or that we might stray away from it. So I think we constantly have to remind ourselves of where we came from. Bishop Greg Rickle, who was rector here for a while, I think said it in a remarkable way. He said, "The oppressed have invited the oppressors in." And when we realize that who we are as white people is very different from who African Americans are as African Americans, but there are similarities and there are opportunities for brotherhood. There are opportunities for us to see ourselves as one. And I think that's very, very important in the life of this parish. The Wednesday morning service, the Wednesday morning Eucharist, began years and years ago. I'm not exactly sure when it was started here. But it is a service midweek to which people who are looking for a quiet, contemplative opportunity to worship come. Now, that's a group right now of small people. I mean, not small people, a small group of people. And I remember often, and I say this often at this particular service, that wherever 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I will be among them. It's tempting to measure your success by size of the congregation. You know, the diocese looks at everything that way. How big are you? How much have you grown? This sort of thing. We're here every Wednesday morning. It's a group that's familiar with one another. We welcome anybody who comes in. We ask them to have breakfast with us. As was this morning, you know, but planned for 6, and we had 9. But the food just was plentiful, and we had plenty to eat. I think everybody enjoyed it. What I think people find here at this service is an opportunity to worship with people with whom they are familiar. And it's interesting, in the middle of the service, people will say something, you know, like, what are we supposed to do now? Or, I think we ought to do this. Or, Father Hugh, what do you mean by, you know, when I'm during the homily? Or it'll be even, you know, less than that. Somebody will turn around and look out and they'll say, oh, here comes so-and-so, they're late. I said, yes, I know, I see that. But if they feel comfortable enough to be who they are, where they are, that's what this service is about, I think, is a relationship with Jesus that works for people individually, that works for them in their spiritual life, in their everyday, out in the world life, and gives them strength for the week. It's just a group of people who enjoy one another, who are looking forward to receiving the Eucharist, to being fed, both in the service and at breakfast following, which is, I think, one of the major personifications of what the founders left us. That situation where you are together, loving one another, being family, and enjoying life.